Hi! We have a very interesting set of questions. I got your comments on YouTube and Instagram, and I also added a few questions I've gotten a lot in real life the last year or a few months. I'll start with the lighter questions and hobbies and all of that, and then go into the more serious questions towards the end. Starting with video games. This question is, can you stream live gaming videos or other stuff? Well, yeah. The short answer is yes, I can. The longer answer is I haven't decided if I want to set up an actual Twitch stream and stream video gaming, because usually I just play randomly. Alright, just set up my Twitch account, streaming for the first time, and I'm excited. It'll be fun. See you on Twitch. Next, what is your favorite video game or game series? Oh, definitely Pokemon. I guess you could say I lived in a pretty strict household and I didn't get everything that I asked for, but for some reason, I don't know why, but my mom surprised me with Pokemon Crystal one day. It was my first game. I still have it. This was back in the day when everyone threw away their boxes because we didn't realize how valuable they were. And I don't know why, but I had this gut feeling that I needed to keep my Pokemon Crystal box. And I'm really glad I did, because I think this is the most valuable Pokemon game now. At least it was a few years ago, so I'm very lucky to have this. And I got this case for my Game Boy Color. This was my Game Boy Color. And I also want to show you, first of all, it's actually a purse. I've just never used it as a purse. But I want to show you that I also have the cable that you connect to Game Boys and you can trade Pokemon with it. Why is this my favorite? I guess I like the plot. I like that it does so much with such few pixels. The music is amazing. It's very comforting. Also, I got really lucky because this is the first Pokemon game ever where you can be a girl. And I thought that was so cool. Pokemon seem so simple, but even down to the way that the menus are coded, everything is just done so well. I had a lot of fun. Okay, maybe on to watches. Do you wear men's-sized watches? No, I don't. They're a lot of times way too masculine for me. I've tried the Santos so many times. I love it. It's beautiful. But when I put it on, it makes me feel like I'm wearing someone else's watch. But I admire a lot of watches that are way too big for me. Too many to even mention. So maybe I should just do a most attractive watches video. And then you'll find out which ones I like. Next, what is your Holy Grail watch and why? I just got my Holy Grail watch. It's the yellow gold Cartier Panther, and specifically in the vintage style. I don't actually like the modern one. The modern one is much more bulky and chunky. Why? Marketing worked on me is the short answer, but not in the way you would expect. I don't know if it was around 2017. Around then, they reintroduced the Panther, and it had been discontinued for a while. And when they did, this is very coincidental, I happened to be friends with someone who was interning with Cartier. She got one of the invitations to go to a Cartier event. This was at maybe Indochine or something like that. I don't know how to say that properly. It was next to NYU. The watches were really beautiful. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm never going to be able to buy a Panther, but one day I hope I will. I guess I can say that I was at the very beginning of that revival, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just there, had some snacks, and left. I'm definitely not buying another expensive watch. Not for 10, 20, 30 years at least. This question is in its own category because I don't know where to put it, but someone asked, what are your top 3 travel destinations? I have a terrible answer. I really just want to go back to Japan and see as much of Japan as possible. I haven't been to Kyoto or Tokyo. I haven't been to Bunny Island. Ever since my husband and I went to Japan for our honeymoon, I've just missed it every single day. Next, Ryan has asked, how do you meet people to date in 2025? I would go outside of your house as much as possible and do as many activities as you can that you like. And eventually, you will probably collide with people who also have a similar lifestyle or set of interests as you. I know that all sounds really obvious, but I really believe that if you're out in the world, outside your house, and you're doing what you really love in the places that you love and at the times that you want to. If you're not a morning person, then don't bother going to morning events, meeting people. If you like London, don't bother going to Singapore to meet people. Doing what you really want to do and living where you really want to be will bring you closer to those people. And then you can pick the one you like. Marshall asks, can you critique my dating profile? Ooh, okay. Marshall is okay with us all looking at his dating profile. So if you have any critiques about his dating profile, please let us know. And if you're a woman and you like his dating profile, please also let me know. I need to get it. Where is it? The first photo is fine, but I think he probably wants me to be pickier than that. Okay, Marshall, I'm sorry. The green, that lime green color is not very good for you. I think you should get a color, what is it? Like a color assessment to find out what colors look good on you, and then make sure that all of the colors you're wearing look good on you. Fact about me that surprises people. I have a how to set a mousetrap video on YouTube with over 1 million views uploaded. Not everyone can make a video with 1 million views. I can't. I just can't tell who you are at all from this comment, so I would change it. Seeking person to go on local and far-flung adventures with, I would just be way more specific, Marshall, because I don't know what you mean by adventures. Do you mean travel to other countries? Do you mean local? What exactly do you want to do? Do you want to do stuff outside or indoors? I would think more about that, but also think about personality stuff too, not just hobby stuff. My quarter life crisis looks like still hot mess. I would just not put that. Whoever sees your profile will think that you are in some way, shape, or form not ready for a relationship. I would try a different prompt, probably, for that. A favorite memory of mine. I wouldn't put a selfie. I wouldn't put any selfies. It makes you look like you don't have any friends. Dating me is like dating Ben Wyatt. Passionate, reasonably responsible adult. Just looking for my Leslie Nope. I wouldn't put this either, unless you really, really need your future spouse to know who these people are. I would just talk more about what it's actually like. What is your day-to-day like? What do you like to do? And then think about what your moral values are too, and imply them in your statements. You can find more attractive photos of yourself, Marshall. My simple pleasures. Finishing the New York Times crosswords, sending a gnarly climb, losing at board games, finishing a home-cooked meal, and having it look like the pictures. There's a lot going on here, and they're all very different. So I would think about just choosing 2 or 3 things to list there, but this one is a little bit better than the others. Also, I think you might have a typo, because board games is 2 words. So then it makes it harder to believe that you went to Brown. Okay, my favorite thing to do while social distancing. That's pretty cool. I like that. It makes you very outdoorsy, like Arc'teryx. As seen on my mom's fridge. I think that's fine. Next, on to work. This one says, please tell us something about your work experiences. I have so many stories. Good and bad. I think I have a story I can tell you, but one comment I want to make is, before I get into that, is the most fulfilling and satisfying and happy part of my career ever was managing a team. And the reason is, I was there just long enough to know that I was helping each of them grow a lot. It was very hard for me to let go of that when I decided to leave them, and I think it will always be a part of me that feels sad too, because I wish I had been there long enough to get them promoted, and it's just like very, very hard for me but I wanted to share that because that was just the most beautiful experience ever. My goal every single day was to make sure that one day they wouldn't need me anymore. Maybe that means I'll be a good mom. We'll see. That's not really a story. I guess that's more of a comment. Story-wise, I was in my senior year of college, and everyone around me was just dressed up in suits all the time, going to get jobs, getting amazing jobs at all the most famous places. And I decided to go to grad school because I wanted to give it a try. And I realized it wasn't for me because I didn't want to keep researching. So I moved to New York and I didn't have a job. And I had so much trouble getting a job. Even though a lot of people gave me referrals, I didn't get any of those jobs. I failed in the final round at the job I wanted, but I got contacted on LinkedIn after months of searching. I got the job. I didn't make enough money to ever go out to lunch with my friends. First of all, it wasn't the hardest time of my life. I've been through much worse situations in my life, but it was very hard because it felt like I was failing. What worked out for me is just working as hard as I could at the job that I had, and then keeping an eye out for a different opportunity and waiting until finally it all made sense. Ever since that job, I've used what I understood about the advertising industry to understand so much more of my life. It turns out, for example, that these big companies, Google, Facebook, and all that, these big companies own almost all of the data that people have in the world. That's interesting from a security perspective because the government needs to get that data. That's interesting from a social media perspective because a lot of social media is just ads. That's also interesting from just the perspective of the internet in general, understanding why Google and Facebook make so much money. It's because they have all this real estate and people pay to put ads on that real estate. I used that experience for good and just reminded myself that even though this sucks and I don't have enough of a paycheck to really survive where I am, there's something positive that I can do with that. And then, yeah, I've worked in civil engineering as well. I did an internship in material science. I've worked in cybersecurity for the financial services industry. I can tell you other stories if you want, if you're curious about any of them. The next question is tips on work-life balance, and then also is it easier or harder to do it from home? There's the practical aspect of how to separate work and home, and then there's a much deeper answer that actually answers that better than anything else. So I'll answer both ways. Practically speaking, it is helpful to be in a physical space that's purely for work. I always lead with the very basic thing of trying not to work on weekends and trying not to work in the evenings. It's important to make sure that who we are does not depend on work. And if we spend all of our time working, then it's very hard for our brains to come up with a separate identity or bigger identity that's outside of work. And then anything that goes wrong at work can seem devastating if that's all we put our time into. But what really matters more than anything is trying to make both of those parts of life as healthy and happy as possible. Getting the best possible manager you can who really fights for you and puts you in the spotlight and helps you grow in a safe way and gives you constructive feedback is so important. And then at home, just being happy and making your house exactly as you want it with all of the furniture and decorations that suit you. And if you choose to have a significant other in your house, making sure that that person is your best friend and biggest supporter. That should really be the goal for work-life balance, because then if you have two healthy parts of your life, then having too much of either is impossible because they're both so good. I guess I didn't think of this at first, but it is difficult to do but very important because our lives are so short, to try to do something that you really want to do in your work, because life, all of life, will be so much better and sweeter and also more relaxing if you can make sure that the work you do is what you actually want to do. Have you ever lost a passion for something and had trouble reconnecting with it, such as with writing or music, from this person specifically? In the first part of my life, my biggest passion was classical piano. This is gonna sound very unbelievable, but my piano teacher lineage descended from Beethoven, Liszt, and Czerny. I'm not at all good enough to be a professional piano player, but I am pretty decent for a random person. What was passed down over those centuries to my teacher, who passed it down to me, is this intense and deep, I'm gonna cry now. Talking about music is like very emotional for me. What was passed down in classical piano was this ability to create sounds that are deeper and more emotional than any words that you could ever use. Even just thinking about music lights what feels physically like a fire in my heart. I don't have a piano anymore. I don't have room for one. I can't play some of the pieces that I used to play. I made a conscious decision. I wanted to study engineering, I wanted to learn how to code, I wanted to study urban planning and anthropology and other liberal arts. I just wanted to have a sample of a lot of other parts of life outside of music instead of only focusing on music. I also didn't believe in myself enough to actually become basically a piano performer. Now, if I sit down at a piano, I don't feel as much of that passion that I had when I was a kid. I don't feel the same way that I felt when I was practicing for piano competitions. It's really sad. But the good news is, I think that passions can change over time. My current passion that I can do endlessly, and I don't even know that time has passed, is video editing. I edited for 5 hours in grad school, but besides that, I really started editing in April. I think the passion I had for music will always be clear because of the music that I choose and the timing that I choose in my videos. I think a part of me will always wonder what would have happened if I had become a pianist. But I don't mind, I guess, because I'm so happy with video editing. I guess because I became a different person, my passion changed too. So for your writing passion, sounds like that's a real huge passion. And so I would start small, maybe open a Substack. You can link it in the comments if you'd like. Regardless of what people think, just put down in writing every day, whatever you want. Writing and music and all these things are art, and you will have your own style and feeling for it. So I would definitely go back into it and then worry about how you'll monetize that in the future. The next question is, how do you transition from engineering to the banking industry? The most natural way to transition is to take a technology job instead of a finance job. If you want to transition to finance, then you may have to take the Series 7 or the CFA exams. But if you're okay with taking a technology job, I would recommend targeting probably hedge funds or private equity to start. If you see in the news right now, the raises from year to year at commercial banks and investment banks for technology jobs are not very good. And then the stereotypes are true. Bankers and finance people definitely talk a certain way, and having that surface level first impression can really make a difference in interviews. Sometimes I see someone in public or on YouTube talking, and I can tell that they're from Morgan Stanley. It's very specific. What's next? I guess there's just like general questions about how I invest. I cannot give you advice about how you should invest because that would require some legal hoops to go through. But for how I invest, how I personally invest, I have a very specific preference, which is that I don't want any debt right now at all. No mortgage, nothing. And then I don't have enough interest in doing anything more fancy. Some people will buy options or cryptocurrencies or alternative assets and all of that. And to me, they're all lumped together as things that may produce a higher reward, but are not worth it for me personally to put more time into. I'm very happy with just the low-cost index fund approach because I don't have a personal interest or passion in studying finance, studying people's balance sheets, and assessing companies or products or derivatives. If you're interested in investing and really studying companies, you should probably try to get a job at a hedge fund or start a fund because you could make a lot of money doing that. Just as they say on Reddit, I think a lot of people buy VU or VT Sachs. Very, very common thing that people do and probably works for most people. I've gotten this question a couple times, which is, am I Jewish? I'm not Jewish. 我是中国人，我生在安徽合肥，然后我搬到英国了。我在高中的时候成为了美国公民。My last name is Jewish because my husband is Jewish culturally, and he asked me to change my last name. I was very neutral about it, and it took me a while. I just said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Your reasonings make sense to me. We want to have a family one day, and it would be very, very cool if we all had the same last name. The next question is, how do you save money to buy nice things? Since I like bags and watches, most of the time that I bought something nice in my life is because I used part of my bonus for the year from work. But also, the reason budgets don't really work for me is because by the time I'm checking if the thing I want is within budget, I probably already want that thing. And so I'd much rather start early before I tell myself yes or no to something that I want, and just deciding up front at the beginning of the year what I want, and then living my week and my month and my life according to what I assess will be true for that year. It's more of a high level view of how I want to operate, and then the details fall into place after that. The other thing is, I always think to myself, would I rather buy stocks or would I rather buy this thing? And a lot of the time, I'd much rather have the money and have the freedom that comes from that money that's growing in the markets, because that to me is buying something too, but it's not buying something material. When it comes to second tier stuff where it's not my holy grail, but I'd like to have it, that usually gets overtaken by my personal desire to buy into the market as early as I can. And then I don't actually have as strong of a desire to buy those items. And so that's been very helpful for me personally. I think we're done with questions for today, but I really had fun hanging out with you. Let me know what you thought of those answers. I think it was a little too serious. Like, I don't know, I guess I just had like a serious attitude today. I hope you got something useful out of this, and I look forward to hanging out with you again. Bye!